Donald Trump just moments ago wrapping up a meeting with his diversity team. We can see the feed here. He was speaking to folks about the importance of diversity. He had by his side, of course, that one famed apprentice, Omarosa. Well, New Yorkers, they're going to the polls tomorrow, and it looks like Donald Trump may actually win by a landslide, gaining all 95 delegates at stake here in the state. But still, his path to the nomination is certainly challenged, and even if he's the majority winner, he may not be able to seal the deal. What's it going to take? Joining me right now, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall and former Bush advisor Brad Blakeman. Good to see you guys. Brad, starting with you, what's the path to 1237? Are you ruling it out, or can he get there?
Well, yeah, he can get there, but it's not going to be easy, and it never is. But when Trump's winning, the system works, and when he's losing, it doesn't. and by the way, the very people you're disrespecting now in those states like Colorado and Wyoming, you're going to need them to get to 1237. Number one. Number two, you're going to need them at the convention for rules and other things. But most importantly, you're going to need the people of those states in a general election if you're fortunate enough to be the nominee.
Okay, so you think he's running a risk by, saying, do we have the sound of what he said about Wyoming over the weekend? You know, he's basically saying that Wyoming is a cooked system. Watch him here.
I don't want to waste millions of dollars going out to Colorado knowing the system is rigged. I don't want to waste millions of dollars going out to Wyoming many months before to wine and dine and to essentially pay off all these people, because a lot of it's a payoff. You understand that. They treat them, they take them to dinner, they get them hotels. I mean, the whole thing's a big payoff.
Okay, so that's a pretty big accusation there, Brad. He's saying that basically you can buy these delegates?
Look, and by the way, there's no proof that any of that took place. The fact is, Donald Trump didn't go to those states at all.
There's no
proof. He didn't campaign at all.
He didn't campaign because he probably figured he didn't have a shot at winning in Wyoming.
Of course. So you got to blame something.
Okay, so Wyoming, he lost all 12 of those delegates, but, you know, he did pretty well in a number of other states. You get things like Pennsylvania coming up right now after New York, Leslie, and you could argue that momentum is on Trump's side, but as Brad points out, 1237, it ain't easy.
No, it's not easy, and I agree. And I agree with him when he says, you know, the system is rigged when it's not working in your favor. And I also agree with him that you cannot poo-poo states that may not make you their guy, because if you're on that platform, if eventually, and I think he will eventually perhaps get to that number, you're the nominee, and you need those states to come out and not stay home and vote, or not vote for your opponent if they're not in love with you and not so loyal to their party.
It sounds like you guys don't like this strategy, that you don't think it's a strategy that ultimately is going to help him. I'm going to beg to differ, because I think actually this is a very smart strategy for him to employ right now, in the here and now. He's worried about getting to that 1237. So what better way to motivate voters and basically stick it to the RNC and say, hey guys, we better talk here, than say it's a rigged system, Leslie?
Well, here's the thing. The system is, in a sense, I hate that word, rigged. Is it rigged, or is it something as a politician you have a vast working knowledge of, and you have the right team in your campaign on the ground?
Okay,
and that's what we're seeing with Cruz.
Not consultants. You know, so everyone can stay employed. The more complicated we make this discussion, it reminds me of accountants and tax code, Brad.
Yeah. Well, look, at least it's not 47,000 pages. But one thing is for sure, is Trump did not employ the proper people at the proper time like Ted Cruz had done months before in order to make the rules work in his favor. That's called playing the game. And if Trump isn't up to the game, then maybe he's not up to being the candidate for the Republican Party.
This kind of surprises me in some ways. You know, look, I mean, he's a guy who's built a very successful business. I mean, he didn't become a billionaire by staying home and doing nothing. And he has been successful in the deal-making space. I mean, how is a guy who's smart, who is choosing to run for president, not really looking to, you know, cross his T's, dots the I's, all of that kind of thing? Why is he not paying attention to the detail, Brad?
Well, I think it's because he does not want to spend money. You know, he's got short arms and deep pockets. He talks a good game about spending money, but then he mocks the fact that he hasn't spent the money like other people have done. and look where he is. The fact of the matter is you have to spend money. You need the accoutrements of a campaign. You need organization. You need competent people. And you need to know what the rules are. And this is like Trump building a 100-story building without elevators or stairs. This isn't the way you run an operation.
Yeah, he needed a bigger staff, in your view. He'd probably differ with that. Anyway, I'm going to see you guys in a little bit, so we'll continue talking. Thank you. Rigged, corrupt, dirty. I mean, these are all of the words that Donald Trump's been using over and over again, right?
And you know why we're here? Because we feel the burn.
Danny DeVito stumping for Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders. Why doesn't he just turn over all his money? In Brooklyn, in what the campaign calls its biggest rally yet. You know, I mean, the government can take 90% of what Danny DeVito earns. Anyway, all those people there totaled about 28,000. 28,000 came out for Bernie Sanders. And if that's actually accurate, that's what's been reported, that would actually be far and above anything that Hillary Clinton has seen so far in this race. Meanwhile, you get these Bernie fans that are getting a big shout out from Clinton supporter George Clooney, despite holding a ritzy fundraiser in LA Saturday night, costing over $350,000 per couple. George Clooney praised Bernie supporters for crashing this event and hurling $1 bills at Hillary Clinton's motorcade to protest big money in politics. You can see it there, money all over the street. You know, believe it or not, George Clooney, of all people, says he agrees with them.
You know, we had some protesters last night when we pulled up in San Francisco, and they're right to protest. They're absolutely right. It is an obscene amount of money. The Sanders campaign, when they talk about it, is absolutely right. It's ridiculous that we should have this kind of money in politics. I agree.
Really ridiculous. I mean, so much for charging $350,000 per couple. That's how ridiculous it is. All right, back with reaction. Leslie Marshall and Brad Blakeman. You know, Brad, I just love the hypocrisy of Hollywood sometimes. You know, there he is on one side of his mouth saying we got to get big money out of politics. On the other side, you know, he's throwing a big dinner for Hillary Clinton and charging 300 plus grand a couple. But isn't this in part the frustration people have altogether with politics, politicians, and the establishment?
Yeah, politicians on both sides do as I say, not as I do. But nobody does it better than Hillary Clinton. Has she been fighting for campaign finance reform? Absolutely not. What she has been fighting for was big dollar donors like George Clooney and other Hollywood elites who, from the walls of their mansion, raise tons and tons of money for Hillary and then come outside and say, well, you know, it's a real shame that we have to do this. Yeah. They like access, they like power, and they'll continue to do it until the rules change.
28,000 people. I mean, Leslie, these crowds are phenomenal. It was also a New York event. He had the New York event last week, which had 28,000 people. I mean, maybe they're the same 20-some-odd thousand people that just keep going. But why is it that he's able to generate this kind of enthusiasm, this kind of support? I mean, a guy who wants to take their entire paychecks.
Well, first of all, because he wants to give them a lot of things. He's promising a lot of things. Of course, we've talked about before. Can he deliver on those promises? That's a problem that I and others like Hillary Clinton have. But you know, one thing you're going to laugh, Trish, on my radio show, I asked people because, you know, not everyone listening is a progressive liberal Democrat, but we have a split, obviously, Hillary and Bernie people among the Democrats. And I will say to New Yorkers calling before the vote tomorrow, how come, you know, we don't see the numbers out for Hillary? And a number of them will say, because we have jobs and we're working. We don't have the time like some of these millennials that are following Bernie in school to come out and support them. And actually, I think it's a valid point.
You know, it is a valid point, and it's a scary point, Leslie, because what it tells you is that the people don't have any, the people that don't have anything, that really don't have anything to lose, that have nothing at stake, they're the ones that want to see this guy elected, who would then go in turn and take from everyone else that actually is working for a living and give it back to these people who just want to be lazy bums. Excuse my French, but you know, that's effectively what socialism is doing here. I mean, this is an economic system that, frankly, Brad, is very foreign to Americans, as it should be. It is not part of our values. It's not part of our culture. What is it that people that are supporting Bernie Sanders are missing?
They're missing the drive that built this country. If it's free, it ain't worth it. And by the way, you have to get up in the morning and feel good about yourself by doing something, not being a dependent on government. You know, the poor in America, Republicans see as victims of a failed system. Democrats see them as constituents. They build a cradle-to-grave society where society is dependent on them. And guess what? Therefore, their vote is dependent on them continuing to get support.
Victimization politics, that's what it all is. And I got to say that Bernie's refining it to a level that we haven't seen. I mean, have we ever seen a socialist run for president and get this far, Leslie? No.
I don't know if we've seen a socialist run for president that admits they're a socialist or a democratic socialist, but actually that's a key difference between Hillary and Bernie, who people think that they're so much alike, which is Hillary Clinton definitely believes that the government has its responsibility in its place, but she also understands the benefit economically of capitalism, which we don't say. Trish, can I say one thing about the money hurling, because it happened here in my state of California? One thing that I have to say bothers me as a Democrat,
that video again that we can show?
For either.
You know, people hurling dollar bills at Hillary Clinton's vehicle. Go ahead, Leslie.
You know, every day we hear two things about Senator Sanders' camp. And again, I like him and I will vote for him if he is on that platform for the Democrats. However, he is raising tons of money. And people get upset if one person gives 300. What's the difference of 300 give one?
No,
the difference is George Clooney is not part of Wall Street. George Clooney is not part of corporate America. And although it is an obscene amount of money, this is the game they're playing. Bernie Sanders has been raising an obscene amount of money.
There's something authentic,
and just perhaps from different circles.
There's something authentic about it coming from individuals as opposed to coming from, you know, big ticket donations. There's something that I think probably contributes to the momentum he's seeing, because there are all these little people out there that are saying, wow, we have the power. We can actually accelerate this candidate at a level that nobody anticipated. Anyway, Leslie, good to see you. Brad, good to see you.
Pleasure.
We're going to take a quick break.